Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. A pretty but very poor dressed girl, years old, cleaned up her apartment. Although in her own way, it is strongly said. The slender house occupied by Oksana Karagina and Samovolna was the only alternative to living on the street. And after all, once she had a very good house, and the rest was from her late mother. Oksana never knew her father. You shouldn't complain about your father in prison, even if you were a lawful citizen. Oksana was fine with that, but it was too much of a hassle for her to contact the stolen thief. Thanks to her fiancé, Oksana was put in prison. Nikita stole and took home his trophy, and on one fine day he was taken. Then Nikita acted like a gentleman by telling Oksana about her accomplice. This is her, who has never taken anyone else's life. And no matter how much the girl tried to convince the employees of the competent authorities to go back, both of them were put behind bars. Moreover, according to the court's decision to compensate, the house was confiscated. The girls in the colony assured that this was already too late, especially if we are talking about the orphan who will have nowhere to go after liberation. And what about re-education? Well, she will leave the colony and go where she wants, unless she is on a slippery path, and this time for real. In such cases, a car and a small cart. He went out, locked up, to freedom. There is nowhere to go. The road is the same, again to the zone. What a corner. Well, how to say? Thoughtfully spoke about Bob Cotty. A tall, golden-toothed woman, older by the camera. Apparently someone put an eye on your house. Under the noise. Maybe that's why you were put in jail? I don't think there was any way to argue. What are you talking about? Oksana smiled bitterly. That's what I'm talking about. There would be a person, and not only an article would be found, but also a bunch of other filth. No money and your word means nothing. But in your place, after leaving prison, I would fight for the roof over my head. It's empty, Oksana sighed. And this house will stay in that life. Sometimes Oksana asked a question. If Granny Katia is so smart, what is she doing here? However, she understood perfectly well that it is not customary in the colony to ask such questions. And she herself was a fool. Oh my! Only after all, she is such a love. Oksana was not offended in the colony, but only that in the beginning they tried to bully. But the girl, by naivety, gave the right answers to all the questions with a hint. Thanks to the series about the employees of competent agencies. As a result, the Sokomernits took her into their own hands, and even as the youngest, they took care of her in every way. Oksana learned to sew well and even became the pioneer of production. The status served Oksana good service. He played not the last role in the liberation of the plow. Instead of 5 years, the girl spent 2 years in the colony. You're already there drunk for us, said her Malvina. And their God will give you a light. She was stunned. Oksana replied cheerfully. Well, Karagin, to freedom with a clear conscience? The head of the colony said with a laugh. If you fall again, I will personally get out. Good luck. Farewell, Karagin. Freedom is certainly good, but there is nowhere to live. In 3 years, a lot has changed in her native private sector, and first of all, of course, houses. Someone built the second floor, and someone built the cottage. However, among all this splendor, there was a place for a poor orphan. There was a rather scary but seemingly whole house on the very edge of the street. Oksana entered it, and looking around, came to the conclusion that the house was quite suitable for living. By the way, the red half-cultured vases, which Oksana loved to decorate in her native house, were ripening in the garden. When she recalled it, tears fell on her eyes. But she thought to herself, everything is in the past, look better into the future. And Oksana began to slowly but surely forge a bright future. In addition to half-cultures, a lot of apricots, raspberries, and erga grew in the garden. I will not die of hunger, Oksana thought happily. Such a beginning of a new life was very satisfying for her. But I should ask the neighbors if it will work out that the owners will show up. Is there anyone at home? She shouted, approaching the neighboring house. Oksana saw how the curtain fell and called again. The owners are... An unfamiliar woman with a rough face came out of the house, dressed in a light floral dress. She was years old. What do you want? The owner asked, not too friendly, suspiciously looking at her. I wanted to ask about this house. Oksana explained, waving her hand towards the one, which was considered a shelter. I would like to hope for a temporary one. Nobody needs it. What is your purpose? I want to settle there. Are you serious? The neighbor asked, quite distrustful. Oksana confirmed. There is nowhere to live, the woman guessed. Nowhere. And you are not from there by chance? She didn't specify where from. But there was no need for that. And so everything is clear. And if so, then what's wrong with that? The girl asked with a call. Are you afraid I'll steal something from you? Wait a minute, you cockerel. The neighbor said more peacefully. She got into it when she was young. It was a fool. But the past is over. What's your name? Oksana. Well, I'm Nina. Let's be friends. You can call me you, and I won't be offended. And first, let's go to Oksana's house. I'm looking at the local friends. They'll soon be back. Eat at least normally, give some kind of a dish to you. After all, the world is not without kind people, thought the girl, and began a new life with a good sign. Having settled down with a plate of boiled borscht, Oksana asked, so what's wrong with this house? With the house, Nina remembered. Yes, come in and live. I used to live here with a large family. So the state gave them housing, and no one talked about this rotten thing. It's going to get all over anyway. But at least it will help you, and that's good. Or I can let you go to my place. I won't take the money. We who have been there must help each other. No thanks, I'm on my own somehow. Well, on your own. If you need anything, contact me. Maybe get some water. I have a water supply. And just come in like that. We'll sit and chat. Come to me tonight. You'll be tired from the road. Not without that, Oksana smiled. Well, you see, I'll take a bath, wash up, and sleep in a clean bed. Sounds tempting, Oksana thought. Okay, I'll definitely come, she promised. Oksana, with enthusiasm, began to clean up. The girl was so inspired by the thoughts of the upcoming new life that she almost did not feel tired. Having cleaned the kitchen, she decided that she would have enough for today and went to spend the night with her neighbor. In the morning, Oksana, having picked up a couple of bottles of water from Nina's and having picked up a good floor cloth from the old man's cellar, went to clean up further. There were 2 rooms in the house, and cleaning the second one, Oksana found a military ticket among the mountains of garbage. After carefully studying the document, the girl noted that it was recently issued. The owner can look for it. Oksana thought, the document is important. There is no place without it. They will not work for sure. The girl decided to take the military ticket to the military command. He is definitely not her for anything. Let the military figure it out. Put your hand on Oksana's heart. She did not want to contact the services at all. What to say? She endured this brotherhood. But since Oksana, despite the well-known fact in her biography with the law, is friends with, she went to the military command with a heart-wrenching sigh. She was slightly deceived. The girls in the military command were not happy. Said the employee, "What's the matter?" The military commissar was interested. "Your ID?" "Oh, you have a lady with a certificate of liberation." The military commissar looked at Oksana as if she were a bunch of one very inappetite substance. She has already times managed to regret that she came here, but there was nowhere to retreat. And the nasty military commissar continued to fool around. "What are you doing here?" The man after the zone wanted to. "So your potential groom is a recidivist in the colonies. So, citizen, you didn't come at the right time." The girl thought that she was enough. Yes, she sat down, but this doesn't give the military a right to talk to her like that. In the end, Oksana came to the case, and not because he expressed himself and the man wanted to leave the zone. "I brought a military ticket," the girl said decisively, and did what she had to do. Oksana almost forcibly put the documents in the hands of the military officer. "Oh, how proud we are!" The soldier smiled, not just feeling like the owner of the position, but still drunk with this state. The military officer looked again at the find of Oksana and smiled again. "Do you have nothing more to do than carry someone else's papers?" And the girl thought, the person who starts the law is bad. He acts according to the law. Too bad. What kind of people are they? Oksana was tired of looking at this self-satisfied physiognomy, and she was going to turn around and leave. And only the girl took a step towards the door as the general with the check entered. "What's the matter?" he asked strictly. The military officer changed his face and began to whine. Yes, we are here. The girl came here, so to speak. Oksana became funny. A few seconds ago, this obviously nasty man was making fun of her. And now it seems like she will jump into her pants. What can I say? Valery Strelnikov looked terrible. What are you mumbling about? The general was angry. And what are you rubbing in your hand? Show me. The military commissar gave the general a military ticket, and everyone saw how he was stunned. Valery, are you not feeling well? The general was frightened and asked one of the employees. Everything is fine with me. The general said and turned to Oksana. Where did you find it, my dear? In an abandoned house. The girl was frightened and said, among the ravens is the garbage. Valery Alexandrovich repeated this and invited Oksana to go to the office. Sit down, beauty, the general said, pointing to a large leather chair. The girl submitted, and he spoke. The guy who owned the military ticket turned out to be the son of the friend of the successful businessman general. In addition, the general had to go to the godfather of the owner of the document. A year ago, the guy disappeared. Searches did not lead to anything. What a cake, Valery Alexandrovich said thoughtfully. I'm a lonely person myself, but my friend Mikhail is family. And this misfortune happened. A good family, friendly. Oksana listened politely without interrupting. She did not understand why the general told all this to an unfamiliar girl, and also to some kind of a. Maybe you want some tea? Said the general. I bought some cookies. The seller assured me that they were fresh. I won't refuse. Suddenly, Oksana answered for herself. She didn't want to part with Valery Alexandrovich, and apparently he didn't either. After all, he's a lonely man. That's great. He was happy. The general politely poured the tea over the cups, took out the cookie cabinet, and continued his story. Many years ago, Mishka and I served together in the Hot Point. He saved my life, and then I stayed in the army, and Miss Hanya went into business. He was always smart. His head was bright, and he always had a commercial veins. Not that I'm a soldier. You're not a soldier. Asmilev said to Oksana, I think you are also very smart and kind. Well, thank you, beauty. Valery Alexandrovich smiled. If it's not a secret, how did it happen that you were in places not so remote? What secret is there? Oksana sighed and told her story. Something is wrong with this confiscation, said the general. Do you want me to sort it out and return the house to you? No, Oksana's head shook. I still decided in the zone that I would start a new life, and there would be nothing old in it. And at home, too. Let it remain in the minds of those who have left me with a roof over my head. Tell me, are you really innocent? The general had a lot of acquaintances working in the colonies, and everyone like one talked about people who assured their innocence. Well, probably they were like that too. However, they were not much hurt. Something hinted at him that this girl was really innocent. But for Valery Alexandrovich, it was simply necessary to hear this from Oksana. Of course, it's her fault. She confirmed it with readiness. It's her fault that she got in touch with the scoundrels. After tea and drink, the general, accompanied by the said Nina. There were always two strangers with her. The neighbor Galina remembered, who lived on the other side of the abandoned house. Terribly unpleasant person. They also said that they had to take the guy. Nina remembered. Well, the picture is clear, the general concluded. Apparently, they kept him here, you filthy scum. Thank you, ladies. But why was the guy held? He gave a voice to the high-skilled subordinate of the general. And where was he taken to? And is he alive now? But all this needs to be clarified. Valery Alexandrovich decisively said and dialed the number of the missing guy's father. Explaining the situation to his friend and turning off, the general said to Oksana, You beauties, thank you separately. Maybe you should award soldiers, so to speak? What for? She was confused. Recalling the high-ranking military officer. I'm here to make sure they're alive and do the repairs here. Valery Alexandrovich smiled, completely right, explaining the confusion of Oksana. Garbage, mushrooms, and everything else. No, 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 no. As soon as she noticed the diversity in her life, everything was over. A week later, an expensive car stopped at Oksana's house. A thin and pretty young man came out of the car. The boy was holding a bouquet of pink roses. "Hello," he greeted the young woman. "Hello." Oksana was confused and thought if the guy was wrong. "I'm coming to you." He answered the last question of the girl. "This was a military ticket that you found for me." "Ah, here it is." She was talking about Oksana. "I see." The girl never got along with such guys, and now she felt like a complete fool. Her first love in school was the classmate of Vanya Skvortsov. The relationship with Vanya was purely platonic, but also Nikita. Here is the whole, so to speak, service list. The guy who came up to the beautiful Silver. "By the way, my name is Alexander, and yours?" "Oksana," she replied shyly. "But I have nothing to treat you to." It was not only in the absence of a treat. Unexpected guests are clearly used to a different environment, and Oksana was terribly awkward. Although on the other hand, it is unlikely that she expects a silk painting and a modular painting on the walls. Treatment is with me, so I don't see a reason to refuse hospitality. The more confused the housewife was, the more confused she was. However, when she saw the expression on her face, she hurried to add it. "I'm kidding." The guest began to disassemble the packages with the products, including a bottle of wine and a small cake. The housewife put hot water for tea. Since there was no kettle, Oksana used the kettle, which Nina gave her. And thank God. They sat down for lunch, and the guest continued his story. "About a year ago, my father's henchmen kidnapped me and held me in prison, in this very house. They wanted to. And when you found my military ticket, these freaks were found by car numbers. Someone from the neighbors guessed to write down, just in case. So here we have a vigilant citizen." "They were late with their vigilance," said the girl. "Well," he held out his hands. "Better late than never. But of course it's a shame that the year is lost." "And what did you do before you were kidnapped?" Oksana was interested. "I worked at my father's company." Oksana thought she was dreaming, and she didn't want to wake up after that. It was too good to be a reality. A cute young man in a beautiful car, so many treats, and, finally, a bouquet of flowers. It's a shame to say that Oksana is already in her 30s, and she has never been given flowers. Nikita wouldn't even think of that. And where she has been, flowers are not given. They sat for another minutes, chatted about various things, and Alexander left, leaving only pleasant impressions of himself. And the next day, he came back. Sasha brought Oksana some of the products and items to the house. They chatted. "Now we will support each other, and I will help you to put up the house," Alexander solemnly declared. "Yes, I would do it myself. I don't want to hear anything. It's not a woman's business." "Well, it's not a woman's business," Oksana laughed. "It's just a matter of a couple of empty seats. But two of us are more fun." But there's nothing to say about that. After that, the trap for Oksana began to be removed from the table. Sasha agreed to help her, and somehow it turned out that their fingers touched. Suddenly, the girl felt that she had been burned from this accidental touch. Oksana hurried to move away from Sasha. But the guy grabbed her by the ear and started kissing her. After all, 3 years of captivity were given to know about themselves. The girl thought and said in her ear, "No, don't." "But why?" He whispered. "We barely know each other. No, it shouldn't be like that. And it seems to me that this is how it should be," he said. "So spontaneous and so beautiful." "No." Oksana did not resist too decisively. "Yes." They didn't make the house so crowded that day. Alexander came a few more times, and then suddenly disappeared. Oksana didn't find her place. A week passed, and the lover didn't let herself know. Probably, he thought I was too accessible. She sighed. He played and left. "I need it." Oksana and Nina sat on the last terrace and drank on the stand, actually handmade by the hostess. Actually, Oksana was indifferent to the alcoholics, but today she wanted to drink to the point of being soulless. "Pour something?" she ordered in a disheveled voice. "You're cleaning something, friend?" Nino shook his head. "And what about the new life?" "There is no new life." Oksana sighed. "There are only bad men. They all need only one." "Well, who doesn't need it? They will be treated like this one, like him, a military man." "What does it have to do with it?" The neighbor was surprised. "And despite the fact that they are all the same, they are a horned animal. Here is who." Nina woke up. That evening, Oksana did what she had thought. That is, she drank to her heart's content. The housekeeper brought Oksana to the couch and carefully covered her with a blanket. Poor girl, she thought. So young and already suffering. She saw the house that once belonged to Oksana. You can't say anything good about it. It's spacious, and the garden is not bad. And now it has turned into a real palace. Apparently, someone really took a look and took advantage of the opportunity, thought Nina. She knew how to act. It's not easy to put a person in jail, and he still needs to be finally smeared on the wall. That is, in order to live in someone else's trouble. Nina looked at the sleeping neighbor and went to the terrace. After clapping her last foot, the woman took her off the table and went to sleep. Having woken up in the morning with a severe headache, dry mouth, and a miserable mood, Oksana gave herself the word to never drink again. Ugh. Oksana really felt much better. Well, I'll go. She was going home. It's time to find out. What's there? Nina's sight. 3 more days passed. Oksana has already made up her mind that Sasha will not come anymore. Well, God with him, she thought. It's her own fault. Where is he and where am I? On the 4th day, Oksana collected and suddenly heard the sound of a car approaching. Who knows who it could be? The owner. She heard a familiar voice. In the first second, Oksana decided that she had hearing hallucinations. But nothing like that. It was Sasha, her own persona. She was wearing a blue, unbreachable polo shirt and jeans in tone. Oh my God, he's so cool. With a shade of pride, the girl thought. Of course. Such a guy in her. Probably I should be offended now that he didn't let himself know, Oksana thought. Anyway, that's what the authors of the articles in women's magazines advised. Or not worth it. But Oksana had no experience of communicating with men, and she had no idea how to behave. And while the girl was thinking, Sasha said, Oksana, I'm sorry you're missing. Did you go on a business trip? Only when he left and realized that he had to buy a cell phone for him, the girl was so upset. It seems that Sasha doesn't think she's available, and everything will be fine with them. Axon, I want to invite you for a walk, Alexander solemnly declared. A walk? She asked in a confused way. Well, yes, for a walk. What is it? Well, I don't know. With a smile, perhaps, on her shoulders. Somehow unexpected. And what is so unexpected about it? I thought we were friends. Me too, but what's the matter? Oksana was awkward to say that it was all about clothes. She had never been spoiled with good things and did not know about brands, but she understood that jeans and Alexander cost about half the living minimum. Oksana, in a kind but completely unsteady silk dress, Nina, looked ridiculous and pathetic. At least that's what she thought. Sasha, not knowing what to think, asked, Did I offend you with something? No. The girl hurried to check. I'm just not dressed. Alexander was never able to hear this phrase, and she meant only one thing. The girl needs to change clothes. But it seems that in this case it was not about that. Ox has definitely nothing to wear, and in order to understand this, it was not necessary to be very smart. His godfather Valera told him where this girl came from. The problem is solved, thank God, Sasha said. Now we'll go to the store and pick up something for you. No, don't. Oksana was scared. It's not fair, Alexander asked with a smile. I will not argue. Then let it be a debt. You find a job and settle with me. Well, is it a debt? She sighed. She thinks that she will hardly be able to get a job in the foreseeable future. A couple of attempts had already taken place, but they turned out to be unsuccessful. And Oksana understood the reason perfectly. Well, they agreed. Oh, yes, I completely forgot. Sasha remembered and ran to the car. I came back with a bouquet. This is for you. Oh, you fox. The girl called out. Oh, well, they ran into the store? Well, what can you do? Having picked a cute mint-colored t-shirt, cute jeans, and stylish blue sneakers, they left them all. There was a social media salon across the road from the store. Let's go? Sash offered, smiling, to avoid further confusion. I don't even know, Oksana said. It's expensive. It's not more expensive than money, and we need to be in touch with you. As a result, they bought a good smartphone and all the necessary accompanying goods. Although the girl was embarrassed, Sasha saw how happy she was, and since Oksana was happy, so was he. However, young people did not even think that they were being watched. When Alina heard that her fiancé, Sasha, returned alive and unharmed, she did not immediately believe it. Usually, in a month, few people believe that a missing person will be found alive, and already a year. The first month the girl was very sad. What can I say? Sasha Lamakin is a jealous groom, the son of one of the rich people of the city, and he is not the last to take the position of the father's firm. Yes, you can only dream about such a groom. In addition, Alina is in good relations with his younger sister Olga. Also a nice bonus. Having made sure that Alexander was really alive and well, the girl went to him straight to the office. Well, hello, prisoner. Alina said hello with a cheerful smile. Hi. The guy was polite, but obviously indifferent. You're so boring. The girl was so capricious. Sasha used to do that. A woman and a child in one person, and there's something about it. But now, after meeting Oksana, he looked at many things differently, including Alina's cringy grins. So I didn't come back from the resort. Alexander smiled with a dismay. What's so funny about that? Poor thing. The ex-lover sang and came up to Sasha tightly, took him in her hands and whispered, but it's okay, we'll fix it. You remember how I was able to comfort you. Only I. Alina, stop. He replied sharply, I have a lot of work. You always found time for me before. The girl's voice was trembling. Why did I keep my loyalty for a whole year? Alexander smiled. His friend Pasha had already enlightened. How did she keep her loyalty? No, Sasha did not condemn Alina. She is young. And what is there? A very beautiful girl. In addition, she believed that Alexander was not alive. After all, it was clear to him in a human way. So what to measure? Alina, do not. With a sigh, said Sasha. I'm quite capable of assessing such self-reliance, but I won't tolerate a lie. I see you understand what I mean. Sasha. Alina made the face of the offended girl. Her lips were shaking so much that it seemed she was about to cry. But who is who? And Alexander knew. Alina is not going to do anything like this. Just a way to manipulate them, which alas, no longer works. Alina, sorry, I really have a lot of work. He was soft but decisive. He was glad to see her. The girl left the office, calling out with a knock on the door. If Sasha thinks that I will give up so easily, then he is very mistaken. Alina, without putting it in a long box, called Olga. I can't explain anything. Alya shook her head, but it seems like she was upset. Are you sure? Alina exclaimed. Despite the forced annual break in relationships, the news that Sasha's other girlfriend caught her off guard. Alina was sure that her fiancé would come to her by a snap of a finger. As it turned out, no. But this is half the trouble. And the fact that Sasha replaced her with some kind of a maid is an insult. Honestly, if Alexander had preferred her girlfriend, Alina would not be so upset. In any case, she would understand him. I was just thinking, I wonder what's wrong with this little girl? Or maybe Olga is mistaken. I said I didn't know anything. It seems like she found a military ticket for Sankin, and he wanted her to thank her. The sister of the groom answered. But does it change the case? Or not? Either way, this should be convinced. Or vice versa. Oh, there are more questions than answers. Alina thought with a hint of a trap and decided to act. When she came home, without postponing, she called the private detective. Love relationship is on the face, if not one, but said the private detective, your fiancé and that girl spent the night, after which he had not shown up for several days. He waved and threw. Alina thought with a laughing hard smile. But on Saturday, when she came to Alexander, she was waiting for an unpleasant surprise. He just got into his SUV. The boy had a beautiful design bouquet in his hands, and Alina perfectly understood who he was intended for. Then the mature idea of following the groom, which she continued to consider him, came to pass. And Alina followed Sasha. Oh my God, what a mess! Alina was horrified to see the house in which Oksana lived. And Sasha's coming here? I wonder what the kidnappers did to him. Not like they were brainwashed. Or is it easier? Sasha adapted. What's the difference? Now the main thing is to eliminate the opponent. To eliminate the opponent, Alina implied that it was not a physical trial. Although if everything is completely hopeless, she is ready for it. For starters, nothing original. She will just come to this lady and talk to her. And if Tanya understands, well, she will have to go to the extreme measures. Alina decided that the best time to visit is Monday. Sasha will be at work, so no one will bother them. And on Sunday, it will be so. Let him be a little happy in the end. Hey, who's home? Alina shouted. She stood in the middle of the yard and did not look at him without curiosity. What can I say? The house looked more like a barn than a living room, but it's good for the butt. Why do you need it if it's not a secret? The neighbor smiled. Well, of course, it's not a secret. Alina smiled. I am a representative of the Wife's Council. Now we are holding a charity campaign for women who have returned from the place of deprivation of freedom. And what kind of help are you giving? Nina smiled. And that was her. You know, I was also absent at one time. Maybe I need some help too? Oh my God. And the audience. The girl got terrified. But she only smiled, leaving a prepared notebook. No, unfortunately, I didn't get any information about you. Only about your neighbor, Oksana Mikhailovna Karagina. So, how can I find her? But no one had to look for her. Oksana herself left the neighbor she was actually with. You are Oksana Mikhailovna Karagina? Alina asked with a smile. Well, let's say, she answered carelessly. Great. The girl smiled, even wider. I need to talk to you. Maybe you should invite me to your house? And I have something wrong with you. Oksana sighed. A little bit of a person who had been to places not so distant told her that this FIFA had bad intentions. Why do you refuse so immediately? The smile did not come from the face of the uninvited guest. The girl is not so simple, Alina thought. However, what's so surprising? All of them were sitting there, some of them were sitting there. So, said Oksana, if you want to talk to me, talk here. I don't have any secrets from my friend, but we need to discuss some details. I came to offer material help. Ah, that's how it is. With a smile, the happy rival stretched. And what kind of help? Yes, Nina intervened. It turns out that now she is helping those who sat down. Women. Oksana laughed loudly. Help? Oh, I can't. Then if you want to help, you better work. Money? They are available today, but not tomorrow. You excuse me, where are you from? From the Women's Council. Alina replied, less friendly. Frankly, she did not want to play the role of a kind young official anymore. Alina had already managed not to fall in love with Oksana, and polite intonations with every minute were giving her more and more difficult. Besides, it's clear to Yuju that the girl didn't trust her for a second. So should she break up with her? Really? Oksana smiled. And the representative of the Wife's Council is clearly not in trouble. The car is like the wife of the oligarch. You cannot doubt it. I will become her. Alina spoke excessively. The masks are torn. I had to play in the open. The visitor, with surprise, realized that it was much easier. You look at yourself and look at me. What are you hoping for, you little brat, and also a sitting one? Sasha's parents will never accept you with your biography. Well, maybe my biography is not so flawless, Oksana said. But I would definitely not be ashamed, the wife of the council. She didn't come up with anything smarter. So, my friend, the guest decidedly said, I don't know what you dreamed of, but Sasha is mine. Do you understand? He is mine. If you're so sure of it, what did you bring here? Oksana smiled. I always thought that ladies like you live in other places, they travel in private sectors. You'll regret it, Alina whispered. Oh, how you'll regret it. Saying these words, she headed to her car. Side of the neighbor giggled. After all, she really saw her opponent in you. I don't know what she saw there, Oksana giggled. Personally, I saw that she can't hold herself in her hands. Elena's visit didn't knock Oksana out of the track. On the contrary, he gave the girl strength and confidence in himself. If the former Sasha came to her, then everything would be fine. Good luck is definitely on her side. The girl was determined to fight for her happiness. Some little girl put her down below the... But what kind of girl doesn't dream of hearing such words? However, she understood. The ex-wife of Alexander is right. His parents will hardly be delighted with the wife of A. I don't want to join the family, sorry, with a bare ass. Sasha laughed. I ask you not to laugh, she said. For me, this is very important. I think you understand everything yourself. Oksana really wanted to be Sasha, but she was far from putting the one she loved before the choice. Either me or your relatives. And how to fight for happiness then? The girl was sad, thought, and decided to share this thought with Nina. You know, Oksenka, I'll say so. If you are destined to be together, everything will be. Who knows who? And you deserve happiness, the neighbor said in a deep thought. But Sasha's parents really can't accept me, Oksana sighed. This is especially, of course, that's still shit, but she is the girl of their circle. She is effective, probably educated. It is not shameful to show up in society with her. Only Sasha chose you, not her, Nina noticed. And if he really loves you, he will stand up to his parents. It's all complicated. Everything is formed. You think? It's not reliable, but deep down you hope that it will be so, asked Oksana. Yes, I'm sure of that. But Oksana is not very good. And it is not known how everything would end if the case did not interfere with the case. Finally, Oksana smiled at good luck in terms of work. True, it was just a fake. But she was glad about it. The girl got a job as a courier at an advertising agency. I must say, they paid well. Besides, every day, Oksana spread the advertising booklets and, having received her legal blood in the office, went shopping. Today she will treat her beloved with a real delicious dinner. Having collected a package of products, Oksana left the supermarket. 3 young men of a very repulsive appearance moved to meet her. Beauty, can you smoke? Asked one of them. I don't smoke, and I don't advise you. Oksana replied independently and made an attempt to bypass them. What's the matter, Borza? The other one was outraged. What is it? He pushed Oksana, and she fell. The last thing she remembered was a deafening blow to the head and someone's. What's going on? Call an ambulance. Having woken up in the hospital, Oksana remembered the scoundrels who had fallen on her in the basement. A doctor entered the room 5 minutes later. The girl looked at him questionably, and the doctor asked, How do you feel? The head hurts a lot, Oksana said, and was sick of it. Well, the sickness when shaken is quite a normal phenomenon, the doctor said. You will live. The main thing is that the flesh is not injured. What? You're pregnant? Smiled the doctor. What? You're pregnant? You didn't know? Oksana negatively shook her head. The term is still very short, continued the doctor. Therefore, it is not surprising. Surprisingly, it is different. As soon as you have not happened, you throw after such blows. Apparently, this child is destined to appear at birth. Oksana was shocked. No, she certainly knew where the children were coming from. But it was too unexpected. And again, these unhappy thoughts about Sasha's parents. Mom, what will happen now? Tell me, was my phone with me? Asked the doctor's girlfriend. Yes, it was in your bag. So, the frostbite was attacked, not to rob her. I would like to call. Yes, of course, I will bring your personal things now. Nina answered immediately. Oksenka, where did you go? She said. Sasha and I can't find our place. Sasha? She called out, but she asked Oksana. Ninotchka, my dear, give it to me, it's very important. Yes, I will give it to you now. The neighbor answered, surprised and at the same time with a nervous voice. Something happened to Ninotchka, as with Oksenka. She was still not at home, and this tone too. Oksana, where are you? Alexander asked. Something happened? They attacked? Yes, they attacked, but I was a little scared and shook. But thank God, with a noticeable relief, said the beloved. In some hospital, Nina, and I will come. In the 3rd city in traumatology. Sasha? Yes, dear. In fact, I need to tell you something else. Speak. Not on the phone. Having learned about the upcoming fatherhood, Alexander was very happy. Are you really glad? Asked Oksana. What kind of question? He exclaimed. Of course I'm glad. And your parents? What about my parents? He shook Sasha's shoulders. I'll talk to them today. I have world-class old men. Understanding. Oksana shook her head with disbelief. Perhaps they are understanding, but not that their son, whom they clearly had high hopes for, decided to marry a nun. Nonsense. It seems to speak in their circles. When Alexander came home, the parents watched TV and discussed something in detail. Sonia, Zoya Ivanovna was delighted. You are late today. Will you have dinner? Of course I will. The son replied happily. A lot and delicious. Well, this will not happen. Mother laughed. Are you so happy today? Yes, I am very happy. Sasha exclaimed. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. Maybe you should have dinner first? Dinner will wait. Dear parents, I will also become a father. What are you saying? Zoya Ivanovna shook her hands. Yes, confirmed the son. But you certainly understand that now I, as a decent person, should get married. Yes, really great news. Mikhail Vladimirovich called out politely. Alina? And what does Alina have to do with it? Alexander was grumpy. The parents were silent and looked at their son in confusion. As far as they understood, something was wrong with Alina and Sasha. Who was she then? The mother of their future grandson? This is the most wonderful girl in the world, the boys solemnly proclaimed. Remember, Uncle Valera told about the girl who found my military ticket? Oh, God! Mother exclaimed. That evening, the parents did not show understanding for the first time. How is it that the owner's son is marrying a girl who has lost her term? What kind of noise is that, dear? The woman asked the man who had left. The girl began to meet a wonderful guy. She was in a wonderful mood, and the rest wished the same. Therefore, the conversation between the parents and the brother in high spirits was not her cup of tea. Yes, your brother is going to get married. Mom sighed. Did Alina manage to get her way? Surprisingly, Olga thought. Not Alina. As if listening to her daughter's thoughts, she hurried to make Zoya Ivanovna clear. Who is she? And let him tell you about everything himself. And I will tell you, decisively said Sasha. That's what, sister. You first have dinner, my appetite is gone, and then I will tell you my secret. Agreed. Only, Sonia, I'm not hungry. We went to the cafe with Dimka and had a lot of delicious food. Besides, I can't wait to hear your heartbreaking secret. Well, to my room or to your room? No difference. Well, then I'll take a shower, and you come to me in half an hour. The parents looked at the children and thought, here are our children. After listening to Sasha's story, Olga with horror realized whose hand it was. Yes, Olga supported her friendly relations with her ex-brother-in-law, but they mostly went shopping, going to clubs and beauty salons, and other ladies' joys of life. Now the girl realized that Alina never really liked her, too self-confident and self-confident. In addition, there were rumors about Olga's over-the-top behavior of her unmarried relative. However, this is her life. Olga became a co-partner of the attack on a pregnant young woman. After all, she threw the whole story to Alina. What is it called? A crime organization? I should ask Uncle Valera. Well, now she will tell everything to her brother. Alina? Sasha was amazed. Are you sure? Well, I don't have direct evidence, but it looks like it. I waited for the time for her to think about it, and I started to act. Well, thanks for the information, sister. He thanked me. But now I am more concerned about the relationship of parents to my future wife. Yes, Olga nodded. But Sasha, whatever you tell me, everything will be fine. And then you have me. Thank you, Lilac. He said it with a touch of brotherhood and hugged her. Well, what else does a sister need a man for? Mizan, you've always been a smart and wise man. Valery Alexandrovich spoke to his old friend. What did you do to her? What did she do to you? She saved your son for a moment. The men sat on the spacious lodge of the Lamikins and drank cognac. The general acted as Oksana's lawyer, and Mikhail Vladimirovich was forced to admit the friend's innocence. By the way, they never thanked the girl personally. But she's not to blame for the fact that the orphan and the ex-sich continued their marriage. Valery Alexandrovich. Well, she's left once, who doesn't happen. And in fact, she has no fault at all. Do you really think I didn't make any references? I don't think so. The businessman shook his head. You're right, Valerka. At least we should get to know her. What am I saying? The sister-in-law was delighted. Only in the near future, it will work. The girl is now in the hospital. She was attacked by some thugs, and the police is doing this. I personally keep this case under control. What can I say? The word of a general in the Lomakina family was heavy and not small. A friend of the family, the godfather of Sasha, and just a good person, was an authority for all members of the family. The doctor said that the health of Oksana and her future child is not in danger, but it makes sense to stay in the hospital for a week. Well, she didn't object. Where else would Oksana have such a nice rest? Sasha came to her every day. He visited Sinina, and on the day of the graduation, the girl was waiting for a surprise. Alexander came to accompany a beautiful brunette with greenish eyes and fluffy lips. The girl was holding a pretty saloon bouquet. "Hello, I'm Sasha's sister. So, your future girlfriend?" The girl smiled, stretching her flowers. "My name is Olga. Oksana," she replied shyly. "Well, we got acquainted. And now let's go. They're waiting for us." Oksana looked at Sasha with a completely lost face. But he just smiled and winked. He said, "Everything will be fine." And she followed Alexander and his sister. There was a Mercedes in cherry color on the street, to the side of which Olga pulled the future relative. "We're going there." Oksana indecisively stopped near the expensive car, but the girl's ringing laughed. "Get in, don't be afraid, no one will bite you." A solid man sat in the car, and a very beautiful, lowly lady of the age of. "Well, Oksana, let's go." With a smile, the woman asked, "Let's go where?" "Home." Oksana lived in the Lomikins' house, but she didn't forget about Nina either. After all, she, as a general, stretched her hand of help. "You will invite me to the wedding?" asked the former neighbor. "Or you will become a rich bride and forget about me." "You are good at giving me an opinion," Oksana exclaimed. "Well, of course I will invite you. And also, Nina, I want you to become the godmother of my future child. I will honor you." Nina watched. Oksana befriended Olga, who happily shared her pre-wedding troubles. The girls, they said, chose wedding dresses, furs, shoes, and bouquets of the bride, and it was fun. "I've always dreamed of having such a friend," Olya admitted when the girls sat in a cafe and made delicious pistachio ice cream. 3 weeks later, they played a magnificent wedding. The belly was not yet visible, and the bride looked great, a fabulous princess. She was delighted to see her head swing. After the wedding, the newlyweds moved to live in a 4-room apartment that was given to the wedding by the groom's parents. Unnoticed, 8 months passed, and there were only a few days left before the family's heir was born. Or rather, the heirs. The museum showed that Oksana and Sasha were going to have twins. The prospect of having 2 grandchildren at once was certainly pleasing Mikhail and Zoya, but the doctor said that the children were going to be difficult. "Maybe it makes sense to send Oksana abroad to give birth?" Zoya offered her son. Mom told her the same thing. He held her hand, but Oksana does not want to hear about it. She says, "I feel everything will be fine." She feels. She shook her hand, caring for her blood. The doctors were right. The mother-in-law was having an incision. The boy and the girl appeared. The baby was not in danger, but the newly born mother lost a lot of blood and was on the verge of life and death. "Urgent blood transfusion is required," said the doctor. "The mother-in-law has a rare blood group. You understand, it's not so easy to find a donor in such a situation." The young father and his relatives were extremely confused. There was no suitable donor among relatives and acquaintances. Sasha, feeling a complete helplessness, got angry at himself, but could not do anything. The general, returning from his business trip, called his friends and, finding out what had happened, cut off. "Come on, stop crying, I'll help you. The thing is, I have the same blood group." And he added, surprised, shaking his head, "Come on, there are such coincidences. It feels like I met this girl by accident." Valery Alexandrovich didn't suspect how right he would be. When General gave up blood, the doctor declared, "I may be wrong, but I'm ready to bet that you and your relative are close relatives." Strelnikov looked at the doctor, surprised, and he added, as if not noticing his gaze, "I'll say more, it may be that you are with her, father and daughter." The general was shocked. He was sweating. In fact, he did not sin in adultery, for example, on vacation or on a business trip, so the doctor's assumption seemed ridiculous to him. And suddenly, in the memory of Valery Alexandrovich, an old story came to life. "What the hell are you joking about?" he thought. "Let's do a DNA test." He spoke out a sudden hoarse voice. "Well, that would be for sure." Yes, for God's sake, answered the doctor with curiosity, looking at the severe general. The test was ready in a record time. It was the merit of the Lamakians. Mikhail paid a good amount of money where it should be and did not have to wait long. The probability of the family is %, Oksana read. I cannot believe it. Oksana had a blood transfusion, and now her life was in danger. The general was sitting on the hospital bed of the newly acquired daughter, thinking that their meeting in the military command was a real miracle. I was shocked myself. Valery Alexandrovich nodded. But you immediately reminded me of someone. I just couldn't understand who exactly. And when the doctor told me about our possible family, I understood who. I had only one Cisnoba, and the general told his daughter his simple story. Valery Alexandrovich, a graduate of the military school, had to go to the hot spot. And Vera, his girlfriend, was absolutely against it. Valerachka, she begged, I beg you to stay, or you will die. I will not survive this. So you suggest me to sit behind my mother's skirt while others die? Who do you take me for? Valery was furious. Then the young people had a very strong fight, but did not make up. Valery went to the hot spot. Then he was wounded. After a while, Valera got married, but the marriage lasted only 1.5 years. It didn't work out. Now I understand that then Verachka most likely already carried you under her heart and didn't know how to tell me about it. The general spoke with a sigh. Apparently, she was afraid that I would think as if she wanted to tie me to a child. Vera, she is proud. It's true. Oksana nodded. By the way, Oksanaka, what's going on with your mother? Valery Alexandrovich asked, silent for a while. What's all this about me? Mom died, the girl said sadly. It happened not long before I got into prison. I didn't see my shame. Don't do this, the general said quietly, hugging his daughter. No matter what happens, the mother will always understand and forgive. When KSN was discharged, the father and daughter visited the grave of Vera. Such are the things, Verunya, Valery Alexandrovich said thoughtfully. It so happened that I could not love anyone, or I did not try. The life of a barrister is like that. And now, at the age of, I have found the daughter of 2 wonderful grandchildren, Masha and Dima. Now I will give in and spend time with my grandchildren. I didn't take part in the upbringing of my daughter, so I'll at least put the babies on my feet, our grandchildren with you. The speech of the father touched Oksana so much that tears appeared in her eyes. She stumbled on the chest of the general and cried. So, daughter, don't do this. Valery Alexandrovich called you. And if the baby disappears, what will I tell the priest? It will not disappear. Oksana shook her head, happily smiling. These are the tears of joy that I have such a cool dad. I'm sure Mom sees us and smiles. The girl looked at Vera's photo, and it seemed to her that her mother's lips were shaking in a smile. And you know, I'm also sure of that. The general smiled in response. Well, let's go, or we'll be waiting. Father and daughter approached the car, where Sasha and Olga were sitting. Sasha held the son in his hands, Olga's niece. His beloved one. 3 years passed. The anniversary of the general was celebrated in a big way. In addition to a few relatives and friends, colleagues at work were also present at the celebration. Each guest with impatience was waiting for his turn to say a few warm words to the anniversary. And when it was Mikhaila's turn, he said, But I couldn't think that we would be born again. Valerka, my friend, I congratulate you on your anniversary and propose to drink to strengthen our family bond with each other every day. The twins sat on the knees of Grandpa Yemeninik and selflessly shaved his hair. Masha and Dima did not think of leaving the orphanage, which the culprit of the celebration was only glad. How he adored his grandchildren. Nobody believed until the last that General Strelnikov would give in. However, he did. Valery Alexandrovich moved to the dacha, and Sasha and Oksana often brought their children here. Young parents knew that it was good for the children here, and for the grandfather. By the way, in life the changes were marked by a very kind general. Once, walking around the village, he talked to the attractive and economic widow Irina Vasilyevna. And then, as usual, he sat with pies, evening promenades, and hikes for mushrooms and berries. The pretty lady of an honorable age was also present on the holiday, and proudly sat next to the Jubilee. Thank you for watching to the end. If you like the story, I hope your support will be a thumbs up. Thank you, and all the best.